The title or topic of this evening's Dharma talk is something you've heard many, many times. Mind your own business. Mind your own business. So, what do I mean by that? Well, a lot of things. One is to find out what your business is. And from this point of view, what your business is initially, fundamentally, foundationally, is your sense fields. Quite often we abandon a sense of touch, sense of taste, sense of smell, sense of hearing, sense of seeing, sense of even thinking for that matter, and go off into some kind of gossiping mentality about others, what they're up to, what they're doing, what they shouldn't be doing, what they should be doing. What we're thinking about what they're thinking we're thinking. That might sound a little silly when I say it that way, but it's not that far-fetched. We're always thinking about what somebody else is thinking about what we're thinking, which is really just our own projections, because there's no way you have any idea what anyone else is thinking. You don't even know what you're thinking. Quite often. Sometimes maybe. But when we have thoughts about thoughts. And then we have thoughts about thoughts about thoughts. You want me to say that again? Thoughts about thoughts about thoughts. And of course, about thoughts. Gets a little silly after a while, but we're actually laminating our thought process. Building it up into some kind of case against ourselves or for ourselves, or against others or for others. We're always kind of for and against. For something. Yeah, let's do that. Let's have that. Or against something. No, we can't have that. We can't do that. And I am not here to say, maybe it's obvious to you, but I'm not here to say that there isn't some kind of for and against going on all the time, but there's probably enough of it already happening. And rather than add on more for and against, I would say mind your own business. Stick with what you actually know or think you know or are trying to know. How does this feel sitting here? So you're abandoning something that is in the present moment. You've heard it said quite often by others. Stay in the now, stay in the present, stay out of the past. Don't daydream too much about the future. Stay right here. What is this? If you're going to have any sanity at all in your life, it's going to be right now. Going around in the past a little bit is okay, but if you overdo it, you start to look and seem, not only to yourself, but to others, quite insane. The same applies to spending a lot of time in the future speculating. A little bit is good, but we tend to overdo it. So mind your own business. Be mindful of what this is. Be aware of your breathing. Very simply, there are very simple things that are happening in what we commonly call the present moment that we ignore. We look away from the very fact of being here. We look away from just being. And opt for some imaginary speculation about this or that, or some guesswork about what somebody else is thinking about what we said, or what they're saying about what they think that we're thinking. And we can train ourselves to do this by practicing sitting practice of meditation. Sit down, hold still, watch what is moving, watch in its fundamental situation, listen to what we're listening to, and see what we're seeing, a wall, a floor. Very simple. Simplify the whole six sense fields, including the mind. Simplify it so that you can see how that works, so you get to know yourself. Quite often most of the time, excuse me, we don't want to get to know ourselves, because when we're by ourselves in a room, in our bedroom, in the bathroom, in the closet, on the back steps, we're thinking about this and about that, and should I or shouldn't I? Lots of stories, little thought balloons all over the place. We're not trying to say get rid of those. Quite the opposite. We're saying be aware that you're daydreaming. Be aware that your mind is going off on little excursions of speculation on, should I do this, should I do that, what should I do, what's the best thing to do, or ruminating about things that we've done. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have taken that job. I shouldn't have gotten a degree in nuclear physics. Standing there at Starbucks, I shouldn't have gotten that degree, nuclear physics. Might have been better off to read a few books on what it means to make coffee. Of course, I don't mean to make light of baristas. We all value those people. We value scientists and anyone who gets an education and trains their mind to function in certain ways that we don't have the time to study ourselves. But what seems to be really important for everyone, if you're listening to me, then probably this is something you need to hear. What you do with it is up to you. But train your mind. I say this over and over and over. Almost every talk, I think, lately I've been saying this, because people that I meet, people that I listen to on television, radio, are saying to do something else. Everyone has some kind of idea about what you should be doing. You should be voting for this, or buying into this, or joining this group of people or that group of people. And I'm not here to say what you should be doing in that way. It would be up to you, of course. But if you're not clear about who you are and what this world is, you will buy into preconceptions about the world, and you'll live your life. You'll actually miss your life. You'll miss the life that you were born to have. And you'll live your life in preconceptions about what other people think about what you should be doing, what other people think about what you should have done or shouldn't have done, or what you think other people are thinking about what you should be doing. And it gets worse. I'm not going to go too much further in that, because it gets absolutely hilarious. I'm not here to be a sit-down comedian. And there's so many things going on. There's so much propaganda, so much fact. There's so many facts and fiction that is coming at us from all different directions. From the person sitting across the table. Maybe it's our partner. Maybe it's our wife, our husband, mom, dad, brother, sister, good friend, a person who used to be an enemy is now a friend, the person who's now a friend. I already said that, didn't I? Person who used to be a friend is now an enemy. Slowly, they don't know they're beginning to become an enemy, but we know something about them that You know what I'm saying. It just goes on. It just gets very convoluted about who's said what, there's just so damn much gossip. So I would say, if you feel inspired or feel connected with this idea of training the mind, then I can tell you about that. I've been doing that for a long time. I spent 30 years doing it before I had much to say about it. Now you can't shut me up. Well, you could say, Sokuzan, you look so tired, you should go take a nap. And I probably would say, all right, I will. I just did. While you guys were all meditating, I was napping. You might say, well, if this is such a great thing to do, why wasn't Sokuzan in here meditating? And you could say that. You should. And I would be happy to answer. So what am I saying here when I say mind your own business? I'm just using a kind of a jokingly saying that, somewhat. Mind your own business. But the way in which I mean it is not a joke. It really is. When you walk out here, notice with your awareness practice, whatever level that is at, and believe me, or no, don't believe me. Don't believe me. Don't disbelieve me. Don't do anything with what I say. Consider it, maybe. Let it kind of hang there in your frontal lobe, or wherever that is that things hang. And look at it and say, does he have a point here? Is this something I could consider? I'm highly motivated to do this. I'm an old guy. It would be much easier to sit around and draw pictures, which I enjoy doing, and watch TV, which I like to do, watch Netflix. What else do I like to do?
Look at your fish.
I like to look at my goldfish. Very simple life that goldfish have. Swim and eat. Chase the other goldfish. But I'm saying, consider when you leave here, or even now, when you leave, when you do whatever you're doing in the next 2 or 3 hours, maybe a few hours before you go to bed for the night, or maybe you're going to stay up, maybe you have a nighttime job, I don't know. But look at the way in which you are unstable. I don't mean unstable as a criticism, I mean as a description. It's not an evaluation of saying, oh, you're so unstable. I don't mean that. I'm saying, look at the way that you're always fluctuating in and out of things. I call it discontinuous identity. If there really was a solid self, if there was a solid person here, or here, then you would never be afraid of anything. You would never be intimidated by anything. You never would be unsure of anything. But there isn't. There's something fluctuating all the time, looking for results, looking for proof, looking for security, looking for a reference point. We don't like to not know what's happening, what's going on. But I am here to tell you, if you wish to transfer from the mundane path of success and failure, the mundane path of getting ahead, falling behind, the mundane path of living or dying, the mundane path, well, you know what it is, polarities. I don't like this, but I like that. I want more of this, less of that. That doesn't seem to work. Some people seem to get ahead and get more of this and less of what they don't like, and other people, no matter how hard they try to get what they want, they just fall into disfavor, ill repute, and so on, disappointment. But the spiritual path actually transcends that. I'm not saying you don't care about negative feelings. I'm not saying that you're dismissive of any kind of polarity. I'm just saying that it arises in your consciousness without, it arises in your consciousness, watch me, it arises in your consciousness all by itself. It arises in your consciousness without an observer. There's nobody there. There's no one home. If you think there is, you'll suffer. If you think there's a solid being here that can win or lose or be born or die, you will suffer. It's not a condemnation, it's an observation. I wasn't the first one to say that. It's been said over and over by sages much more insightful than I am, starting with the Buddha, starting with probably lots of Buddhas back there, hundreds of them. So strengthen the observer part, strengthen that which understands from the point of view of seeing what arises and seeing what falls away, rather than grasping at things, trying to get something to happen and trying to keep something else from happening. So we're always at this little mini skirmish we have in ourselves. If you don't lose that war, or settle that, or make peace, or make friends with this deep anxiety or difficulty that you may have, I mean, maybe you don't. Maybe you're just here on a lark. Isn't that a car of some kind? Skylark. Skylark. Yeah. What was I saying?
You were starting to say a little while back how to mind our business once we leave here. And then you kind of switched into belief and disbelief, and I was wondering if you could finish what you were saying, or maybe say more about what it means to mind our own business after we leave the Zendo.
Thank you. Can use all the help I can get. So minding your own business means that when you go out, that you actually notice the way you keep turning away from the very reality that is presented to you as a gift, the gift of your sense fields. Something is being, the world is giving you everything. The kind of generosity that is overlooked is the receiving part. Here you're being offered something through all of your sense fields all the time. Receive it. Be grateful for being here, being alive, having eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind, and so on. Some people maybe don't have that. Some people can't see. Some people can't hear. Some people can't think. So you could start with just that very simple awareness. I'm not necessarily talking about meditation and action as it's often taught by trying to be really aware of everything. I'm just saying, just touch and go, just flash on it. Just notice the concrete, the asphalt. Notice the sound of a car going by. And then touch and go. Just, you don't have to disown it, but just let it go. Don't cling to anything that's arising. The ego mind, the self-centered mind, gets a little worried about anything that moves around too much. So quite often we do something about that. We medicate ourselves, or we might get very religious in some way. We try to find some way to give ourselves some kind of security. But there was I don't know who wrote the book, maybe it was title of the book, The Wisdom of Insecurity. There's profound wisdom in insecurity, because it doesn't fuel a self-centered me first mentality or style. And it is open, because it's open. It's actually a sense of openness that isn't constantly bringing all kinds of energy into some kind of self-protection. You can feel that if you walk into a room full of people. You can feel how in your mind, instead of just being there's people. instead of just receiving the images of people, different shapes, sizes, colors, descriptions. Instead of being there with that, instead we start to worry about how we look. It might be very subtle, and it might be different with each person, but there's always a subtle kind of a humming in the background about some kind of how we appear, how we look. Maybe some kind of fear arises over being criticized, or wondering how we're dressed. Or maybe we're going the other way and we're saying, I don't care what people think. Quite often the people who say that are the ones who are the most concerned with it. And that's how they keep convincing themselves that I don't really care. I don't care what people think. I would do what I say. I'm free. You have questions? I'd like to answer them. Yes.
What is insecurity when it's not filled in with fear?
Yes, it's called freedom. You actually feel, you actually hear, you feel wind, you hear noise. You're here, and you're as Kobun Roshi's my Zen teacher translated the Heart Sutra, which you chanted tonight, and he did it in English. And he said, rather than saying gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha, or gone, gone, gone beyond, gone completely beyond, awake, so be it, he translated that same mantra out of the Heart Sutra, written a couple thousand years ago, we think, translated that as based on his experience of being a monk. I think he was only lived to be 62 or something like that, 63. Falling apart, falling apart, falling apart, nothing to do. Well, what was falling apart? Our grasping, our identity, our clinging, our fixation on all kinds of things. The very fixation on not knowing, on wanting to know, making some kind of demand that we have to know about this, we have to know about that. All of that whole structure of ego or self-centered mind just starts to collapse. And when it starts to collapse, a lot can be said about that, and I'm happy to address any other questions. But what he was basically expressing, as far as I know, was the whole structure of who he was and everything just came apart, and there wasn't anything to do. This doesn't mean that he didn't continue to eat or have lunch or teach his students. He certainly taught me. I would not be here if it weren't for him. I would still be running around in circles believing I was enlightened. Enlightenment is not a state of mind. If you think it is, you're wrong. Don't you want to disagree with me or something? So it's not actually a state, because a state is solid. Anything that appears as a state will collapse and fall apart. Won't maintain. It's it might be better to say it's no mind. The mind functioning as no mind functions just as in a way of just dancing with everything. The whatever rises in the sense fields is not. There's no clinging to it. There's no abandoning it. There's no pushing on it. It arises and it falls away. And you may feel good. You may feel bad. It doesn't matter. The traditional way of talking about this in the Zen tradition is sun-faced Buddha, moon-faced Buddha. There's a sun-faced Buddha and there's a moon-faced Buddha. Buddha. Everything is Buddha. Everything is awakened. Nothing has ever slept anywhere. But you have to individually realize that yourself. It's not something that can be dumped into you. Further?
When you were talking at the beginning, you said to mind your own business, and you said our business is our six sense fields.
Yes.
Could you say the way in which our six sense fields are our business?
Well, it's your business as far as how your butt feels. It's nobody else's business. It's your business. It's your business as to how, as your breathing, your heartbeat, when you're seeing something, it's your business what is coming at you, what you're hearing, and what you're thinking.
How do we not use that to then say, well, it's me that's having business, or how do we not create a solid self out of that?
Observe when something happens, how the word use comes there. When the word use, that's extra. There's no way, if something is not separate, there's no way, there's no thing here to use something else over there. Even though it appears in our discursive and analytical and discriminating mind that the acid is used by the stomach to digest food. You can break it down that way, and you can see some kind of trajectory between cause and effect and cause and effect. But to grasp onto that as some kind of a way of manipulating your world is ignorance. Because what you're doing is as soon as you grasp, you're ignoring everything else. You're ignoring your fingernails just because there's no feeling there. But they're your fingernails. More.
Is there ever a point where we're not ignoring something?
To respond as directly as I can, I would say there is, but it's not actually a point. If it's a point, then you're probably ignoring everything that is not the point.
What does it mean not to ignore?
No self, no other. Perception only.
It's not necessarily noticing every single thing that's...
No, that's what ego wants to do. The self-centered wants to be really aware of everything. I'm so aware. If you're not looking at anything, you can't miss anything. If you don't look at something, and it's with some kind of desire or rejection, this doesn't mean that when you look at something, a flower, you don't appreciate it or enjoy it. Doesn't mean when you eat spaghetti that you don't wish that you had a different kind of sauce on it. Fooled you there, didn't I? And it doesn't mean there isn't polarities happening. It's just that the fixation is gone. We just really enjoy that. You could say, if you wanted to put it in a sentence, you could say, I really appreciate that I can taste something. I know not too long ago, Unyo had a illness, cold or something, or flu that was really bad. And after she came out of the flu, she spent several weeks, months, where she couldn't taste or smell. Combination of couldn't taste or smell. And this was the contrast between being able to do that and suddenly she had quite an appreciation for what that was when it was gone, out of contrast. So it came back. I'm glad. Any question?
From Sanho down in Austin, Texas. He asks, are there consequences for minding our own business?
Well, if you, Sanho, if you use the word consequences, you can break it down into this caused that. The acid digested the food. I fixed supper. I burnt the toast. There's causes and effects or everything. It's all over the place. So yes, there's always going to be consequences, but when they happen to a self, to an assumed identity who wants to win and doesn't want to lose and wants to look good and doesn't want to look bad, wants everybody to love them and not hate them, then the consequent cause and effect is happening all the time. This is part of the seduction of these sense fields, is that we want to grasp onto some and reject the other. But it's the same sense field. I say this over and over again, and I would recommend all of you contemplate this. If you hold out your hand, if you run a feather over your hand, it's fairly pleasant feeling. Kind of tickles a little bit, but it's sense nerve endings on your hand. But if you take a nail or something and drag the point across your hand, it will hurt, especially if it breaks the skin. But even if it doesn't break the skin, because there are nerve endings there, same nerve endings. One is gently stimulated, and the other one is abrupt and aggressive, and so on. That's happening in all the sense fields. You're a living being. Your spirit, which is not a living being, by the way, is arising in this particular meat suit. I wasn't the first one to say that, but I liked it when I heard it. It's just kind of a cartoonish way of talking about it, but it helps us see, oh yeah, there is something happening here that has, when we say not separate, I don't mean there aren't divisions. When you see that no separation, your ability to see natural boundaries and hierarchies is amazing. You don't have to make decisions about anything anymore. I don't make decisions. I do different things, but I don't decide anything. Ask my wife what it's like to live with me. What is it like? Don't lie. It's wonderful. She lied. So anyway, it's the same nerve ending, and this is true of our consciousness, our mind, and so on. It's the same nerve ending. If you have something that you personally would call depression, stop naming it. As soon as you name it, it's the very thing that you're experiencing is, in its raw immediacy, should be received by you. There's nothing wrong with that. There isn't something wrong with the world because you're having a negative feeling. It is. So don't necessarily name it. And if you do, see if you can remove the name and see what it is you're naming. Take the word depression, as if it's written on a piece of cotton candy. It'd be hard to write on cotton candy, but say it was written on that. Set it aside. Don't eat it. Set it aside and look at what it was covering up. Look at the feeling that you were calling depression. See if you can remove and see what is the texture of that. Is it like a bunch of snakes when we use that kind of image, or is it tie in more with odor? Does it tie in more with the sense of touch? Is it abrasive? Is it prickly? Is it gnarly? Is it dark? Is it gloomy? Is it all of that? Maybe. And you notice I still used a lot of names, but there's more of a motion around that. You're actually investigating. You need the name, but just don't fixate on it. Modern science, scientific materialism, wants to fixate on it because they want to make money with it, for one thing, and they want to control it, and they want to have results, and they need proof. And I don't need proof for anything. All evidence is partial. All evidence is incomplete. Some evidence is good, but when we lock down on the evidence, then we end up with prisons and criminals, and we end up with a society, a huge society that is at war, where people actually begin to start to think it is appropriate to kill other people. Well, it's happening all over the place. Bailey?
How is it helpful to remove the label of depression and then label the texture that arises?
Just because you're making a change, you're doing something with it besides freezing it or fixating on it. Because as soon as you fixate, then all investigation ceases because you know what it is. It's depression. You'll even talk to someone else. Well, I feel really depressed. Yeah, I know I did too, but I'm doing better now because now I take Prozac or any drug. And not to say that these drugs shouldn't be used. Don't misunderstand me. But anything that's done should be done with awareness. It shouldn't be done just as a lid on a jar so we can keep the ghosts at bay. So you may, chemically, one person really may need to use that. And so I would say, if I were to take that further, find a good therapist, doctor, get help. Not just what I'm saying, but cooperate with others, communicate, cooperate, find someone who you like the frequency that you like the how you feel when you're around them, maybe what it's like to talk to them. So I don't know if I'd call it trust, but you could give someone the benefit of the doubt. If someone said, maybe you could take this medication or that, maybe that's true for you. But I would also say that I often say to my students, if they're taking a medication, try to take a vacation from it every now and then so you get some contrast out of it. Consult with your physician or your doctor or whatever so that it isn't, anytime you're taking chemicals, it's good to have as much help as you can get. So, read the book Drug Dealer MD. That's a very good book. Yes.
Can we still use the labels of the texture that's arising to freeze it?
You could do that, but if there's a lot of awareness there, this is why my promotion is about training the mind, or sit down, stretch that awareness. So when you engage in your everyday life and you engage in thinking process around anything, that there's a lot of space around it. Instead of living in a broom closet, the image I like to use is you're living in an open field. And I don't just mean living on the farm. She's a farmer, kind of. But I mean an open space, so things can breathe and move, and you can be surprised by something. Whereas if you're in a broom closet, you're not surprised by anything, because your room is really, really controlled. Here's a wall, there's a wall, there's a wall. Hopefully there's a door behind me in case it catches fire. And there's your cell phone, there's your laptop, and there's your coffee, your tea. Yes.
A question from Sheldon down in Union City, Michigan.
Sheldon.
Yes, can we mind our own business and still take actions to help a world full of beings that are not minding their own business?
And I would say that's a very good question. And this is what Sheldon is asking about, is what generates this talk. I say, mind your own business. Don't interfere with those people that you project on, that you think that they're doing this and this and this. I'm not saying they're not, but I'm saying your time is best spent, if I may be so bold to say this, and since I'm here and you guys are all looking at me, I might as well. Mind your own business. If you do that, then you've really taken care of yourself. You really see who you are, what you're like. You haven't gotten rid of your negativity. Don't get rid of too much. Then you start to puff up with pride as if you're better than everybody. I'm so clear. I'm so meditative. I'm so peaceful. I meditate so much I never get mad anymore. That's not the idea. The idea is to really be aware of what happens, not to, in other words, to have the awareness is what's important, not what arises in the awareness. I'll say that again. The awareness itself is your mind. It's mind only. Everything else is not separate from mind, but it's the part of the mind that is on the move all the time. And it'll go on. It's on the move to warfare, and it's on the move to peace. So, to respond more specifically to Sheldon's question, I would say, don't take your eyes off in the world. Don't stop looking at the news. Don't stop listening to people. Don't stop discussing it or interacting with people around it. But taking any action in that direction. This is what action looks like. Unless the action comes out of awareness. If it comes out of opinions, ideas, fear, as soon as you start acting out of fear, everything closes down. So you can't see what's there. But if you act out of awareness, then you see all of the combination of all the collection of energy that comes together in this way and changes to this position, and changes to that position, and changes to this position all the time. As soon as you have an opinion about something, the world keeps going and changing behind it, but you're locked down. I don't say you specifically, but people get locked down on their ideas. It can be called anything from a political party to an ideology to some kind of belief that this is true and that's not true, or that some people are better than other people. Any kind of position. Yes, sir.
So how are you able to observe like what goes on in the news and whatnot when it seems like it's all set up to keep you on your toes to wonder what's going to happen next? How can you observe it without feeding into the paranoia?
I would say you're doing a pretty good job. If you're able to describe it that way, because that's what it looks like to me too. But what I'm saying is we so much want to solve it or do something. We get anxious and we don't like it because it sucks. But if you look down through history, what's going on CNN or MSNBC, or even the other channel, the Free Speech TV, Link TV, or anything else, NPR, I watch all of that a little bit because I want to know what's happening in the rest of the world if I can, and I don't know of any other way to do that other than travel around a lot. But receive that. Just be on receive. Receive it and don't add on to it too much. Let it come in. Let whatever is happening come in without particularly interpreting it as good or bad, or even though some of it is obviously horrible. I've been listening to books on tape, Audible, a story of Timothy Snyder's book called The Bloodlands, about all the people that were killed before the Holocaust that Stalin killed in Germany, all based on diaries of people. I mean, millions and millions and millions of people were starved to death by him. And that's all ignored or shut down. We bombed North Korea back to, as they say, back to the Stone Age in the 50s. And we're the ones that split them up. In 1945, we're the ones that divided them so they would have that line that they now are fighting over. I don't know if the United States and somebody else, Russia, probably got together and did that. And it's not to blame them or accuse them, but just to acknowledge, well, this happened, and this pushed over here, and then that went that direction. And now we've got an insane person in there that is thinking that all Jews should not be here, shouldn't live. That's an astonishing amount of horrible confusion and aggression against whole millions of people. It's just astonishing that someone can be so unclear. But this has been going on. I mean, if you go back and read in the Middle Ages, or you go back and read all the wars that have been happening for centuries and centuries, even during the time of the Buddha. So the idea here is clarify this. You don't have to join Buddhism, you don't have to be a Buddhist to train your mind. I think it helps because it gives you some kind of a structure, dynamic for proceeding that way. But there's nothing to believe here, even though it might look like it. Well, we need to have something up here, so let's have the Buddha. But train your mind to see what is true, what is not true, and don't jump to conclusions about it. And if you do jump to conclusions, then just notice, then don't jump to conclusions about the conclusions. Think about that. Yes?
We're aware that we're acting out of fear,
Yes.
but still acting out of fear.
Not quite. That's why it's very, very subtle. It's like tracing paper. It's very, very subtle. So there's a little bit of, here's the situation of the fear is like, it's claustrophobic. And it's like a dark room or a dark area where everything is very musty or very gloomy, or I mean, they can use all kinds of metaphors for it, but some dark area, and then the awareness is like something that comes in that sees what that is. And this is what when you're sitting on the cushion, you may feel good, you may feel bad, you may feel neutral. I don't really care how you feel, as long as you do it. Because feeling good on the cushion can happen to you for years, and feeling bad on the cushion to you could happen for years. As long as you're meditating, it doesn't matter. Whatever, when I say, when you sit down, hold still, have your eyes open, and all the senses are open, and just turn everything on receive, then whatever you receive is exactly what you need. It has nothing to do with this guy, or anyone else particularly. But it does have to do with your whole body-mind complex that's been going on for lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. So sit down, hold still, and see what all these lifetimes, all of this history that is invisible until you hold still, and then it starts to show up. And some of it might be all of the negativity you've been shutting down on. Now you need to witness it, and you need to let it go through without particularly fighting with it. Yes?
The awareness that I'm operating out of fear doesn't feel like it has much influence, or like anything is changing. So what?
That's why I'm here. Just like what you say, it doesn't feel like I'm getting anywhere. That is a merchandising mentality, that tit for tat. I've done this, I need to get this. And I say, no, you don't. Do it anyway. What you will get is so beyond cause and effect. It's beyond, I'm doing this, so I get that. It's not just lifting weights and getting muscles. It's doing work and it's lifting weights. It's heavy lifting because you're sitting down and you're just working with an intense set of thought patterns and so on that are coming and going and coming and going. I say, do it anyway. And like I was saying, for one person, it may go along fairly smooth because of their own causes and conditions, their own life, their karma, however you want to say it. Another person might have a whole lot of really difficult stuff to deal with. And I would say, just do it anyway. So then when you practice, you come and talk to me, and I might change your meditation. I might say, sit for longer periods without moving. I might say, sit for shorter periods, do more walking around. I might have you do a mantra. Unlikely, but I might. So it varies. I teach basically shikantaza, but I also might change that depending on what's happening. Further question on that would be good if you have it. Or, yeah.
How can I not look for results?
You don't have to stop looking for results. You just have to be aware that you're doing it. It's always about awareness. It's never about controlling anything. It's not about being peaceful. It's not about being anything. It's about awareness. And eventually the awareness will come an understanding about everything, but it's just the nature. It's called basic goodness. It's just the nature of reality is not separate. And when you see that, it's like, why would you fight with your own hand? Someone else who's giving you a lot of trouble somewhere, you begin to realize that you're not separate from them. You're separated. Bodies are separated in lifetimes and in physical situations, but the fundamental situation is we're not separate. When you begin to see that, then the warfare is over. You're just, even with people who are extremely confused and want to fight with everybody and want to be foolish, we give them the room to do that. We respect other people's intelligence and their confusion. And you can have people say, oh, we can't do that because they're going to take the world into some kind of oblivion. They're going to, yeah, that's possible. But you can't stop cause and effect from happening. It's what's happening now has been coming for centuries. So, but what can you do? Find out who you are. Don't live another lifetime without finding out who this is, please. How do they say that? What is that thing? I know. Do yourself a favor. That's a good one. Do yourself a favor. Don't join this. There's no club here. We have 6 people that live in this monastery, and they can leave any time. All they're going to do is make me scowl if they do that. But that's all I would do. There's nothing wrong. People can come and go. There's no, even meditation is not a prison. It's just the opposite. Question?
One last question from Shane out in
Yes,
California.
Shane.
He asks, how do names bring about an identity?
I think it's because the overall identity quality of feeling like we are somebody when we use the personal pronoun I like banana cream pie. So I like banana cream pie. So there's kind of an identity happening with the banana cream pie, especially if you make it. And but I don't particularly care for pumpkin pie. Actually, I do. I lied. I like that too. Is there any pie I don't like? Well, you know what I mean. So the naming of the personal pronoun gives you is quite a bit of space there. But as soon as we start using our actual given name, then it gets a stronger. And then we hear people use that name because no one uses our personal pronoun, just we use it. So there's a little bit of a quality of puffing ourselves up there. But then when somebody else calls us by the name we've been given, it seems to bring some kind of invisible structure around the identity. Spend a day, every time you talk to somebody, give them a different name. When you introduce yourself, say, I'm Ken. or if you're a guy, introduce yourself as Mary. I mean, just, just do that. See, spend a whole day doing that. And especially you, was it Shane? Yeah, Shane, you should definitely do that. But it probably won't have that much effect in California. He's going to come here pretty quick. He's probably going to hit me. So he's coming for the wedding. So yes, I think it just tends to protect it, but also we use names when someone receives precepts or receives jukai, whether they're lay ordained or fully ordained. They have a different name. Chazan goes by a different name. Unyo does. Senchu, I do, and I was given names back by my first teacher, Trungpa Rinpoche, and a long time ago in the mid-'70s, but I never used that. I looked around to see if people were going to use their names or if he wanted us to, and he said you can do whatever you want. A few people would use their refuge name or their bodhisattva name, but it was rare, and I was way too self-conscious to be using some fancy name because I thought that would be egotistical. I no longer feel that way. Now I know it's egotistical. But since the self is not real, you can actually be who you are. You can be genuine. You actually can be who you are. You don't have to make excuses for yourself or feel embarrassed about who you are. Be who you are. That includes all the negativity, all the stuff that comes and goes, the emotions that come and go. Please, live your life. Don't miss your life. Don't cover up your life with a bunch of claptrap. Anything else? Very good. Thank you so much.
We'll stand and dedicate the merit that's in the back of your red chant books. And I'd like to remind everybody about the donation boxes that we have in the hallway. We appreciate any help that you can give us. Also, we do receive donations online through PayPal or debit and credit cards.
May the merit of this penetrate into all places, so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Jiho Sanchi Ishi
directions, the three worlds, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna Paramita.
O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and the 3 times, please hear us. Please come down out of the light and protect Sokukoji Buddhist Temple Monastery, our Sangha, families, friends, and visitors. Heal everyone who is unhappy, sick, or suffering, and fill them with light.